The newspaper Hindu in December 2014 said that the richest 10% in India held 370 times the share of wealth that its poorest had. Tabulating numbers from a Credit Suisse study, the newspaper report claimed that the 1% of India's population was controlling half the wealth. Since the global recession, inequality has emerged as a stirring debate across the globe. I caught up with Rohini Nilekani, chairperson of Argham and one of India's well-known philanthropists. We spoke about philanthropy and how it has really changed the idea over the last decade. Listen in.
Globalization and a certain kind of economic liberalization has unleashed powerful wealth creation. And in India too, in the last 25 years, we've seen a sudden burst of new wealth among new kinds of people. For example, our family, the infotech sector, the pharma sector, some of the other tech sectors, we've seen a lot of wealth creation. Similarly, we've seen a lot of continued and exponential wealth creation of even the older industrial families who benefited, who were poised to benefit from liberalization. Now, the kind of philanthropy that some of us are doing and they are doing is, I believe, significantly different from earlier kinds of giving. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. Both have problematic issues. The problem of wealth creation itself, such immense wealth creation, has its problems. But one of the things we have to look at carefully is how that wealth is used. And some of us are hoping to give a lot of that wealth away. And that's
Indeed,
different because it's strategic.
Right.
They're looking
right.
at
Go
it
on,
a
go
little
on.
differently
Yeah.
from charity. We are looking at it, I believe, a little differently from the very noble, very moral, ethical, spiritual dimensions of giving that are there in every society around the world, in every community, in every religion, whether you call it dan or zakat or utsarg or charity or whatever. I think today there is a serious issue of this well-understood inequitable distribution of wealth, and therefore the role of that wealth has come into question, and I think philanthropy has also come into the spotlight because of that.
And indeed, there is a clear difference between charity and philanthropy. I remember hearing Azim Premji once, and he said the difference between the two is charity will give a poor man a fish, whereas philanthropy is actually teaching the poor man how to fish. And I think that is the big and perhaps a very profound difference between the two. So therefore, you're saying that there is a clear causality and, and a clear correlation then therefore between... yeah, go on, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. In fact,
please,
one needs to go one step further. One needs to go one step further. It's not just about the old adage of teaching a man to fish. I think today one of the big problems in society is that people know how to fish, but if you take away the access to the lake or the water body, how on earth is that person going to fish? So I think it's about access, about creating equity of opportunity, and about really understanding how power structures are in society. And philanthropy must look at least to address the root causes of inequity. That's what I see as
very
the positive
well put,
role of philanthropy.
So essentially you're saying that the whole notion of philanthropy, and I think over the years, with every successive years, the idea is sort of, it's sort of getting more and more nuanced and perhaps far more expansive now. So, people like you are taking a far wider like gamut of things when you're talking about philanthropy. As you rightly said, it's, what happens if, if the lake disappears tomorrow. So in that sense, you need to take into ecological factors, governance issues. So therefore, you're taking a much wider understanding of philanthropy today.
Yes. I think that's essential because the danger is that philanthropy can make only incremental differences. We all feel good. All of us are wired for altruism, for feeling good. We get a lot of joy. Our brains are wired to feel good when we help others. But if you look at society, and if you look at, as I said before, power structures, it's not enough if this wealth which is created, so much unprecedented wealth in the hands of a few people, if that wealth is not deployed back for the benefit of society, then I think nations, societies, states have the right to question whether such wealth creation is at all viable, necessary, and sustainable. So I think the role of philanthropy becomes very important then to address vast canvases of work. And at least some of us, I think, in India are trying to do that. We are learning the ropes as best as we can.
You indeed are, ma'am. In fact, that brings me to a very central issue, which is the moral obligation of the well-off to give. Because, philanthropy, the general idea on philanthropy is that it is voluntary in nature. But, globally, we are seeing this, new debates coming out. An academic like Peter Singer, who's basically come up with this whole idea of effective altruism, he talks about the moral obligation on the well-off to actually help the poor. It's not a question of being voluntary anymore. If you are well off, it is your duty and your responsibility to help, the less fortunate ones. I want to bring you in that debate, ma'am. How do you see, is this whole notion of philanthropy increasingly becoming more and more mandatory on the rich?
Well, I think it's both a moral and a strategic imperative. But look at it very simply, okay? I mean, why does the state allow us, people like me, to keep the money that is made? Of course, the way financial markets are structured allow a lot of wealth creation. But a modern nation state allows people to generate a lot of wealth and allows them to give it away, right, as philanthropy with some tax benefits. Not too many in India and not too many for the Indian wealthy, actually. Some people have mistaken notions that the wealthy benefit a lot by giving away money. But whatever that benefit is, why does a modern nation state allow tax exemptions for philanthropic activity foundations? Because societies really hope, governments really hope that people will use that money innovatively, wisely, with justice in their hearts, and use that money to make society better than if that money were taxed by government and went into basic public service delivery infrastructure creation, right? And if that money does not appear to do that and does not actually do that, it's much better if it is taxed. That's what I very strongly believe, and that's the moral and strategic imperative for philanthropists to give away their money more and better. Otherwise, it makes no sense to allow such rapid wealth creation. It must benefit society. However, once that is said, what philanthropists choose to do with their wealth must be based on their own passion and commitment. It's no use telling me to, put my money into something that I don't really care about. It's important that I put money where I really care about creating equity or justice or innovation or opportunity. So the voluntary part of it is to do with that.
All right. That's really well put, ma'am. So, interestingly, what's also happening is when you have billionaires like yourself, like Nandan, like a lot of other people, Azim Premji, the Tatas also, who are actually willing to sort of pledge their wealth, it's also creating a certain amount of peer pressure. Clearly, when you're talking to your friends in the evening, all right, you would also be nudging them, to perhaps do more. So in that sense, now today, never like this, a situation like this has perhaps never existed in the past, where increasingly the wealthy and the well-off feel that there is indeed an obligation to do something, or else, it might not be good for you, even from a PR standpoint, to put it very, very crudely.
Yeah, well, I don't care about PR. I think there's a deep ethical obligation. And I agree that the wealthy, people like you, that's the media, need to put a lot of public pressure on the rich. You must hold us up to be accountable for our wealth, responsible for our wealth. There should be public pressure on the wealthy. The wealthy should not be allowed to be comfortable. As somebody, what is that very famous quote about afflicting the wealthy and, comforting the afflicted, or whatever it is. But I forget the exact quote, sorry. But I think it is the role of the public and the media to put pressure on what is the responsibility of wealth in society. And to be fair, I think the Indian rich are waking up to the idea, a bit slowly, but waking up to the idea that we have the potential to use this wealth to do a lot of good and to be creative, to be innovative, to bring in the best talent, to bring in the best resources to solve some of the world's most challenging problems that India faces today. So it's very exciting as well. It brings a lot of joy, it brings a lot of satisfaction, and you will see more and more people giving more. In fact, last year, Bain & Company's annual philanthropy report suggested that they put together some data, and it suggested that actually, in some sense, India has been an outlier. At this level of GDP growth, our philanthropy seems to be developing faster than that of other countries at this point. Well, I hope they're right. And I hope we see a lot more public giving and visible giving by the wealthy.
The well-known